First impression is so vital for any new media, and LEGO definitely knocked it out of the Coley field. From the first commercials we saw, this was our first physical introduction to Bionicle. The original Toa canisters released 20 years ago. Best thing about it, so you can orient it to each of the Toa. Oh, well anyway. This of course allows for the Kanohi mask, as it is the same mold as the faces of each Toa. It's one of the few times where the canister is not transparent, or at least translucent. Most peculiar is how this isn't the exact color of Gali's contrast color, which is the lighter blue, which is primarily what makes up Turaga no Kama. But I really respect that it's still holding up in one piece. You even got the little mini directions. Surprisingly, this was never done on any figures besides the original Toa, but my guess for how this is peeling and being it is loose probably made it much more fragile, so I can't complain. Moving on to Tahu Nuva, it's a much stronger canister, as this pretty flimsy, including the exterior packaging. This is when we really got detailed in Bionicle. So Gali has the background here fading a Gakoro, and the background of Tahu Nuva represents each of the Toa symbols. And of course, them and their iconic pose. Toa to Toa Nuva aren't too dissimilar from each other, so it's more of a refinement more than an upgrade. Now here is when LEGO really upped the detail. Starting in 2004, we had a higher contrast of darker colored Toa with Hirokama compared to Tahu Nuva, who is much lighter. Much like the prequel it is, it's made to look like a more industrial design from earlier time. But dang this canister. You have the top portion, which can hold any Kanoka disc of your desire. In the back, we have Metru Nui with each of the 6 Metrus, and some fantastic art of launching his disc while in Ta-Metru. Now here, we have a better comparison between 2003 and 2004. The Rakshi Oden from the bottom even had the removable side for when displaying them. I do prefer the Vaki, despite they weren't built nearly as nice, but they were better in design and had slightly more variety. One piece of reversion I respect is this hull being transparent while the top is not, and the Vaki is completely the opposite. And just like the Toa Metru, retains a spot for our Kanoka disc. Now I suggest we jump 2 years ahead into 2006. Yes, the Toa and Nika. My favorite character finally became a Toa in some incredible packaging. The aesthetic of mounting Jala's energized flame sword and his collection of Zamer spheres in the top, absolute genius. I also want to point out, we had heavy contrast in the Toa and Nika. Jala's contrast was gold, for example. Hali was more of a slate gray. It suits the emo or even graffiti style in the background. Simple lightning and rain really made the effect that much better. In fact, the entire background happens to be grayscale. The team transitioned into aquatic Toa. I like to think of these as a sort of capsule, which they easily separated, but damn, does it look the best when it's all together. Mari are among my favorite Toa teams, as this was the first point when each Toa was individually different. They weren't palette swaps, they literally had their own pieces in assembly, making them each independent by design of each other. Sure, it cost more money as these were like $17, but dang, LEGO never skips out on the quality. Baraki. Some incredible enemies and excellent follow-up after the Paraka from the year previous. Looking like an ice glacier, got the ice cracks and the bubbles, really well-designed canister. Fantaka in 2008, a brilliant adaptation going into a glacier style, much like the entrance of a cave, as you would expect with Vampra, much like the term, scientific name, Vampirum spectrum, as it is based on a bat. But just the amount of design that went into the character and the packaging. Walk through a toy store in 2008, you see this and you will not forget it. And remaining here in 2008 with Rydak, I do absolutely love the idea of stalactite and stalagmite. This is completely cardboard, it's not plastic, and they were essentially tied down with zip ties. But even though this is so simple, it also acts as a nice base for each of the characters. Let's check out some corrugate artwork. This was from 2005. This is also the first year LEGO began with the miniatures. I've really grown to like these. They were different, they were more traditional, but also gave a chance to make a bigger scale set. And with the ruins of Metro Nui, you have the spider webs up here from the Visorak, and of course the minifigures, which this contains all 6 of the Toa Hortica. As we've established, Bionicle kept changing year after year, losing its consistency. That, as we know, is what made it great, the lack thereof of being repetitive. 2007 also introduced characters with vehicles, which continued to 2009, which this is from, the Caxium V3, and it's a Bionicle take on a motorcycle and a sidecar, and man does it look fantastic. I must say, these are much higher quality images than any of the previous box art specifically, because all the detail and the reflections, it's like watching Power Rangers Samurai after finishing up RPM. Just the quality of the camera vastly improved. Jumping ahead into 2015, we have Bionicle's Revival. Surprisingly, we didn't go with canisters, rather just corrugate packaging, but I can't complain. I love the comic style back here, shows the Toa action as well as Gali's mask, so not too much to say. Disposable packaging, really can't complain about that, as I do care for all of it. But still, the aesthetic and the print, high quality from what you'd expect, nothing less from LEGO. Let's move on to an iconic piece from Bionicle. Bigger box, more space. Toys R Us exclusive, we have the main figure of Takuda Nuva, Makuta Karax himself, Takanuva, and the mirrored confrontation of the Kanohi Evoki and the Mask of Shadows. We also have silhouette of Matsunui in the backdrop, and an excellent chasm here, he's striking in the bottom. It's one of the few places I see this typeface of Makuta and Takanuva. And we all miss Bionicle.com.